What's up, guys? I have been seeing a lot of discourse about the PSL, and I've wanted to give my thoughts for a little bit because I think some of the critiques are not necessarily warranted. I think some of them are very valid, and as somebody who wants to see the league succeed, I just wanted to put my thoughts out there on a lot of the different takes. I've compiled everything I've seen on CF and in video comments and just like the main criticisms that I've seen, and I wanted to kind of address them each one by one and give you my thoughts on where I think there might be some disconnects between like different people's thought processes. And I would love to have a discussion about the PSL because ultimately I think whatever the PSL does, it tries to be a good thing for queuing. And I think that is not anything to be mad at or to try to take down before it even gets started. I just hope that hearing my thoughts, maybe if you're somebody who wasn't a fan of the PSL, gives you another take and you are willing to try it out, at least for the first one or two comps. Need to get a disclaimer out there. I am a brand ambassador for the PSL. I was aware of it for a decent bit before it launched, and of course, I have like an interest in seeing this do well. So I think that's just me being fair to say. Independent of the fact that I am somewhat a part of it, I would have signed up for this even if I wasn't a member, and even if I wasn't a top level solver. I would like to think I would still be a fan of the PSL if I kind of knew what the goals were. So I don't really have like a order on a lot of these critiques. The first thing that jumped out to me was some of the talks about the commentary. I saw Michigan 2024 explicitly named in at least a few comments, and I thought that was very interesting and telling. Michigan 2024 was a Speedcubing TV stream that did not get dedicated commentators. If you look at any of the commentary nowadays from any of the recent comps, like Swoopin' and Solve, which was me and Manu, Indiana Championships, which was me and Michael Rosenkrantz, which Rosenkrantz is like a first-time commentator in cubing, so there's understandably some things in that one that weren't ideal. But anything me and Manu have commentated, anything that Chris Mills and Michael Tripodi have commentated recently on Speedcubing TV, I think the commentary is pretty good, comparable to some of the stuff we've seen at any of the major finals. I would say that a local Speedcubing TV stream with me and Manu or Mills and Tripodi is better than the Asian Champs commentary. I think it has a better division of like play-by-play versus color commentary, and I think everybody in the Speedcubing TV circle kind of understands what we want commentary to look like, and I think they have a very good idea of what it should look like, and in my opinion, I think it has been executed pretty well in the most recent streams. So if you're somebody who is very doomer or pessimistic on the state of cubing commentary, I urge you to look at some of the more recent Speedcubing TV streams and just check them out. Tell me what you think. Of course, cubing commentary is still in its infancy, and it's not like these people are commentators first. These are people who are passionate about cubing and want to do something good for the community, and it's only going to get better from where it is right now. So, and even now, I don't even think it's that bad. I think it's honestly good enough for what people want to see cubing be, or what people in my circles want cubing to be, which is a spectator sport, which is for debate. I also heard that the commentary wasn't good for experienced / like top level solvers. Gonna say it by name, Daniel Carnoff said this. I would disagree. Again, I urge you to look at the more recent commentary. When I have done commentary, I feel like I do my best to try to make things digestible, but also give takes on what actually is good practice in 3x3, right? I am a top level 3x3 solver. I am a coach. That's my full-time job. I live and breathe cubing at this point in my life. And I feel like I try to do my best to present a very digestible analysis of solves, especially at top level when it's like Luke Garrett versus Luke Greiser. I try to give nuance to that, but still make it understandable to the layman. And anything that I say that I feel like maybe goes over people's heads, I think Manu does a great job of simplifying it for a broader cubing audience, which I think is a very, very good duo there. So. Also, there was a take of people saying they don't feel very confident in the production of these streams because it's going to be Speedcubing TV. I think that's one of the silliest takes, honestly, in all of this. I think Speedcubing TV has done a great job streaming every single competition that they've done. Obviously, they're good enough if they were able to do Nationals, NAC 2024, and then now they're doing Worlds 2025. I think they are by far the best production company in the speed cubing space. And if you do not feel confident in their capabilities, I urge you to watch their streams, because who else is going to do it better? Just genuinely. And even just outside of who's going to do it better, which I don't think anyone is, I think they do a great job. The whole team is very competent, and they have experience in this. And they are going to try to make this their full-time thing. They want to stream cubing for as long as possible and make it their full-time gig. So I trust that they, even if you don't like it now, it's only going to continue to get better, as with everything that is a part of the cubing community. On the same type of thing as like commentary is not good for top level solvers, this is what Derpy was also saying. Why are we explaining 805 so consistently? And this was kind of a meme that Manu did for All-Stars, but I think it makes a lot of sense, because like in a lot of other sports, right, you don't need to explain the rules all the time. I think the reason why you don't need to explain the rules all the time is because a lot of these other sports explain themselves. Even if you don't know the nuances of like what constitutes a foul, what is a travel, etc., you can see, like if it's basketball or something, you can see ball goes in hoop, people get point, most point win. You see what I'm saying? It's a lot different when it's cubing, where the format doesn't necessarily explain itself. And I think once you hear it once or twice, like it's relatively digestible. But you need to deeply understand how the average of format works in order to get a gist for how a person is feeling, what pace is, etc. Cubing in of itself is not visually appealing enough, because once you see someone solve a cube, you're like, oh my god, wow, that's crazy. If you're a non-cuber, that's crazy. Wow, I didn't know you could do that. And then you see like a million people solve a cube, and it loses its allure, right? So I think you need to explain the average of format to make sure it stays engaging, and that way people have their own idea of what's going on, and they can follow along and see like what the vibes of the average are. Like, okay, maybe this guy's a lot of pressure, right? He has a lot of variance. Like he can get a counting 10 that's very, very bad for him, and he could not make the next round. There's a lot of nuance to it that I think is required with the average of format. And personally, that's why I think the double elim bracket format is a lot better. Just any head-to-head format, especially. Because rather than it being, I see time to solve cube versus I see time to solve cube, I average out those times, like what's really happening here. It's this guy solved it faster than this guy. And that makes the visual, and it just makes the visual aspect of it a lot easier to see. Because you see one guy finishes first, boom, instantly that guy wins. So it takes away the need to understand the average of format, and I think that's what makes the double elim bracket a lot more appealing in my opinion. I guess we can keep talking about the format. There was a lot of critiques about the format, which I find understandable. The big take is, why would I, as a non-top solver, compete at the PSL? If it's purely for competition, honestly, I don't see a reason why you would if you're not a top level solver, especially if you're just going to get cooked. This is not to say that you have no reason to. Of course, Chaya said previously that he wants to make the PSL more of a convention-like experience, where there's going to be things outside of just the competition that are going to be drawing people in. One of those things would be like meeting top level solvers, potentially like, I know I was talking to Chaya, maybe I would do like a presentation or something at the PSL about like a certain topic in 3x3 or like a F2L concept or something. Maybe I would do something like that. He also wants like mosaics. He wants it to be like a uniting thing. He wants it to be a convention, right? He wants there to be stuff happening that's not just a competition. And I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of our current worlds and majors format that we have currently. All you do at a major is compete. And I think honestly, that's kind of lame. I talked about this on my podcast with Manu, and I think Chai is on the right track going forward on what to actually do with that. And I also want to preface and say, like, any critique you have of the PSL, Chai is open to listening. Like, he has said so many times that the iteration of the PSL now is not what he wants it to be by the end. He wants it to be ever evolving, ever changing, to make it better. Okay, so I think criticism is very important because he wants to guide this to a better direction. And if you disagree with the direction or the current implementation of it now, hopefully it's not going to be that way in the future. And we find a happy medium of what reaches non-cubers and what reaches the cubing community at large. So back to the format. The schedule is long. The schedule says, I think it's 12 hours. It's like from 9 to 9 for the first PSL event. And it's not going to go for 9 to 9. I can tell you that right now. One of the problems that someone was saying is that this doesn't solve the issue with WCA comps that people have been talking about, specifically in my circles. I don't think everyone agrees, but the idea is that WCA competitions are boring because when you stream WCA comp, you're kind of, like Speaky Ben Zed said, you're making the shiniest turd or something. The format in of itself is not ideal for a spectator environment, if that's what we're trying to make cubing, which again is up for debate. Because the PSL is open to everybody, you still are going to get time where there's going to be non-top level solvers competing. What I think people don't understand is that the only thing that is streamed is the top 8. So if you're saying, why would I watch 8 hours of mid 3x3 solvers go head to head? One, you're not. You're only watching the top 8, which for the first PSL event, we already have 3 top level solvers. It's going to be me, Maddie, Timon. I think that in of itself is value proposition enough to watch the free live stream with a high level production quality and pretty decent commentators from who I think is going to be on there. I think that in of itself, you're not watching an 8-hour stream. You're watching like a few hours of top 8, which I don't think is necessarily bad. That's something you see in a lot of other like fighting games, right? Fighting games, there's like majors where top 8 is a few hours long because it's a double elim bracket, but it's still hype and people watch it anyways, and those communities have never been worse for it. In the same way, there's people who attend majors who are not top level competitors, and that's a thing in like every sport. I think the reg fees are something new for the cubing community, but I have friends who are mid-tier fighting game players and they will pay 80, 90 for a regional, which, you know, that's a cultural thing. That's a different thing in the cubing community that we haven't had before. And for an event like the PSL, it does cost money in the initial startup, right? It's not going to be something that we can easily fund. You know, we're not Red Bull. We don't have hundreds of $1,000s to just throw at this and, you know, see how it goes. We have to try to make sure it's profitable. And the idea is that the reg fees are not going to be as expensive as they are right now later down the road. Again, we haven't even seen a PSL event. We haven't even seen the iteration of it. If it goes well, like, this is supposed to be the proof of concept to bring to a sponsor, and then hopefully the sponsor can supplement some of the cost of the reg fees, and then hopefully give money for other aspects, bigger prize pools, better events, etc., etc. Again, double elim sucks if you are bad. That's what someone was saying in CF, like, why would I compete in double elim bracket if I suck at 3x3? And it's because it's part of the vibes. I mean, you want to be part of the vibes of like a big comp like the PSL. There are bad players in the fighting game community who attend regionals / majors and they pay like $80 entry because the community has built up a culture of, yeah, part of the money that you pay goes through the prize pool. I'm not entirely sure that's how the PSL actually functions. Maybe some of the money goes to the prize pool, but I'm pretty sure even if no one regged, they would have enough money for the prize pool. So do with that what you will. In my head, the PSL, I think, operates best as a pro circuit, a format that is specifically tailored to top level solvers. I think honestly the PSL works more if it's like an invitational format, but I think having it be open leads to some more hype. If you are somebody who wants to be a up-and-coming cuber, if you qual into the top 8 of the first PSL event and there's actually people watching, that gets a lot more eyes on you than it would have if you just, you know, get 3rd place at a local comp or whatever, right? If you're an aspiring top-level solver, I think the PSL is very good for you. If you're a top-level solver, I think the PSL is even better for you for your brand image and your recognition, and for me specifically, hopefully I hope it helps my bottom line in coaching. I think there's still value if you're not a top-level solver to go to the PSL. Again, I think maybe the best iteration of it is when we have enough top-level solvers who can travel the globe and attend these events and make it entertaining for everybody to always watch top-level competition. But as it stands right now, that's unfortunately just not the case. I saw another take. This style of double elim works, but only if we have smart cubes. So imagine GAN SSL. I think GAN SSL did a great job. I commentated it for the Happy Feet English rebroadcast, and I thought it was really good. There was some technical difficulties and whatever here and there, but I think with the production of a Happy Feet stream, we can get enough slow-mo replays or whatever to give the commentators an ability to talk about these high-level solves. That is if we have high-level competitors commentating. For example, I think Chris Mills could do a very great job digesting a lot of the information and giving it to the audience for the very dedicated cubing audience who want to see top level solves and the people who necessarily don't even know about cubing. I think he could do a great job kind of mitigating those two sides. PSL was initially supposed to be a Smart Cube competition, and there's nothing stopping it from even being a Smart Cube competition in the future. Again, like I said, Chai is willing to do whatever is best for the league, and if that means going to Smart Cubes or trying it out, then he will do that. The PSL is ever changing, and this is the first season. They're just trying to throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks, okay? So, again, whatever iteration you see of it now, if you hate it, give constructive criticism, and maybe you will see your vision come true. Then the biggest take in terms of the format is that cubing isn't even a spectator sport. Corey Sikowski was talking about this in CF, and he was saying, cubing is built on accessibility and participation. I think there is no reason for the PSL and WCA to not coexist. If cubing is built on accessibility and participation, that's great. That can happen within the WCA. Then if you feel as a top level solver or somebody who's gone through the WCA for a long time that the WCA doesn't have a viable monetary incentive to keep going, because at the end of the day, man, you gotta get your bread or else it's cooked for you. Like, there's no reason to be spending 8 hours a day cubing if, you know, you gotta work. You know, it doesn't really happen that way. So I'll touch on that later when it comes to don't put money in cubing, but I think cubing is built on accessibility and participation, and I think WCA does a great job at that. The grassroots organization of the WCA is amazing, and many other sports or niches or hobbies would be lucky to have an organization as well run and widespreading as the WCA. I and a few other top level solvers that I've talked to, and again, maybe I'm in somewhat of an echo chamber here, I felt that the WCA doesn't do a perfect job at giving top level solvers a place to exist. The financial incentives in cubing are not great. Even compared to, you know, I mean, cubing is relatively small, and again, I'll touch on that, but even compared to cubing in 2007 Worlds, if you won 2007 Worlds, you made more money flat than if you won Worlds 2023. Not to mention, that's not even adjusted for inflation. Okay, so why is cubing bigger than ever? We had the Netflix stock, Felix and Max are larger in the public sphere than ever. Why do we as a cubing community shaft the top level solvers? You know, I'm not even the person that's winning this money, right? And I don't expect myself to ever to win this money. But I think it's insane how if I was a cuber in 2007, I would be making more than I would right now from prize pools. That's kind of crazy. And that, again, that's not even adjusted for inflation. So I think it's understandable that there are top level solvers who want something else. And Red Bull served that need at a time where I feel like the community wasn't ready for it. Now I think there's a larger amount of top level solvers who want what the PSL is willing to offer or is trying to offer in the end. Okay, cubing being a spectator sport. I don't see a reason why cubing wouldn't be a spectator sport. Again, it's maybe a difference in philosophy here. I think cubing is already a spectator sport. Why would me and my boys stay up until 2 a.m. watching Asian Champs finals? Because it's a sport, and we are spectators, and we like to watch it. I think it's just silly to say that cubing isn't already, to a degree, a spectator sport, so why not lean into it more and try to grow the community because of it? Everything around cubing being a spectator sport is in an effort to bring in non-cubers to the community and to hopefully get them into WCA competitions and get them in love with the cubing community, which then helps everybody else, right? The more people in the community, the more all this stuff starts to make sense. And PSL is trying to be very forward-facing in the fact that they want it to be for the non-cuber audience while still hopefully targeting the cubing community at large, which in my opinion, I think they're in the right headspace in doing. Cubing isn't a spectator sport. I think it's kind of silly because it already is. So why not kind of just push it a little bit harder, right? All-Stars was very great. I thought people loved All-Stars. If you didn't, you know, talk to me about it. Why didn't you like it? I think cubing is already a spectator sport, so why not push it further and hopefully grow the community by doing so? Another thought was about that the comp is only 3x3. One, Chai also said this, but who's to say that we won't do more events, right? PSL starting with 3x3 only, and Chai said this specifically, but it's because it's the minimum viable product. I'm of the opinion that if any event in the WCA is to break into the mainstream, it would be 3x3. That is up for debate. Some people say that non-3x3 stuff would be more interesting. Maybe you can infer based off a normal Rubik's Cube what a 2x2 is or what a 4x4 is. Cubing already has such a large barrier to entry. There's a lot of information you need to understand. And I think if anything is to be the most understandable, it is, oh yeah, that is a Rubik's Cube. I have played with that. I have seen that in my house. I have seen that in stores. Maybe I've even seen the Netflix doc. 3x3, in my opinion, is going to be the first thing to break into mainstream. It may not be the only thing, but if you want queuing to ever break into the mainstream, which I want to see, which again, grows the community, gets more people in, more money for top level solvers, people can cube longer, the community grows, more eyes on it, better YouTube videos, etc. Everything grows when there's more people in the community. If you want that to happen, I think 3x3 is the best bet at doing that. You can disagree with me. You can say you think 3x3 is boring, but I think you are slightly being ignorant if you think that 3x3 is not going to be the one that has the easiest chance of breaking into the mainstream. This is not to say, again, that other events cannot join the PSL. Chai has even said this. He thinks other events are spectator friendly, and I would agree. I think there are other spectator friendly events. However, as it stands, I think 3x3 is the one that has the best chance at breaking through and helping the community at large. I understand if you are somebody who's invested a lot of time, like my friend Brian Johnson, into learning OBL and PBL for Square One, and you are a top level solver in the world. It sucks to see that Squan hasn't really been a point of interest, or it's not the focus of the PSL. That's understandable. And again, I think the WCA does a fine job for you to be a top level solver. But there's nothing stopping any other organization from coming through and doing what the PSL is trying to do for 3x3, or the PSL adding Squan, or 4x4, or 2x2, or Blind. I saw some people saying Blind would be the best thing to break into the general populace. I disagree. I think Blind is one of the more spectator-friendly events. I think the wow factor is amazing for the general audience. However, I think Blind gets kind of stale pretty quickly. 3x3 does, I guess, as well, but it's the Rubik's Cube. I think once you see someone solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded one time, you're like, that's insane. How'd they do that? Once you learn how they do it, it maybe kind of takes away some of that allure to you, right? But I think 3x3 is the best chance of making it through, and that's why 3x3 is the only event at the PSL as it stands. We have to focus our efforts on what is going to be the best thing going forward, and I think me and a lot of other people would generally agree that 3x3 is the thing that has the best chance of making it to the broader audience. On that note, some people were saying, it's 3x3 only, it's going to be boring. I don't want to watch it. That's fine. If you don't like 3x3, then don't watch it. However, the same people saying that are the same people who probably watched Asian Champs Finals or other type of finals, major finals. And I think it's a little silly to just discredit an entire league based off that. I don't care what I'm watching, me personally. If there are people who are good at their craft going head to head against each other, I want to watch. Whether that be in log rolling or lumber sports or drag racing or bocce ball, it does not matter to me. If you are good at your sport, I want to see you go head to head with somebody who's equal to you. So in that sense, I think it's kind of silly to say 3x3 is boring. Take your personal bias out of this. That's not a valid critique of the PSL. 3x3 is boring. I don't like 3x3. Boo, wah, wah, wah. I don't think that's entirely valid. You can not like 3x3, that's fine. But hopefully you see at least where I'm coming from in terms of 3x3 is the best bet of making it into the general audience. If you don't agree, I would love to hear your thoughts on why. There was another take as well on the fact that PSL isn't official. My friend Noah commented on CF. He said, I don't want to watch it because it's not official. And that's what a lot of people got stuck on. And that's what I got stuck on initially as well. And he said, because me and my friends can't PR. He thinks, and I think a large part of the community agrees as well, why would I compete if I'm not getting like a personal record or whatever? Why would I join the PSL just to get squashed in pools, top 64, for no real gain? No, my results aren't officially recognized. One, there's nothing stopping the WCA from officially recognizing PSL. When the WCA got started, and they do have a relationship with Guinness now, but when the WCA got started, there was no real standards of what constituted a official Rubik's Cube solve, whether that be 15 seconds of inspection or the way in which the scrambles are generated or whatever it may be. Nowadays, I think we have a pretty clear idea of what makes an official solve. That's a solve with 15-second inspection, clear starts and stops on the timer, and a stack mat. If you can solve a 3x3 cube that has been officially generated by a random state generator, and you can solve that thing with a stack mat legally by WCA regulations, there is nothing saying that that time is not official. I didn't see people have this critique on Monkey League. Why is this a critique on PSL? Why is the fact that it's not official a problem? And And if you think PSL is not official, I urge you to challenge your beliefs on what you think is official, because I don't think it's so straightforward. Just because something is in the WCA doesn't mean it's official. If you're not aware, the WCA database, which has been touted as the big thing for the WCA, it's okay, great, we have our database, it's so great. The WCA database is flawed, fundamentally, in a lot of different spaces. Only now have top 50 results actually started being changed and looked at very strenuously by WRC. So that was never something that happened really before. And I think that's the right track for the WCA to have, just by the way. But when you have a competitor base of around 200,000, it's very hard to make sure that all those results are legitimate. And I will tell you, a large majority of the results in the WCA, not legitimate. So if you're touting that you have a very good database and that's what you're standing on, maybe you should check yourself, because it's not as great as you think. If our official database isn't necessarily rock solid, then what's stopping something else from following the same types of rules and regulations from being another valid source of data, especially when these results are going to be more heavily looked at than anything else in the WCA. Lil Timmy's 15-second 3x3 average, where he didn't get a +2 counted, or he stopped illegally, or whatever may have you, I feel does not have as much legitimacy as something done in the PSL in front of a large crowd where everybody's watching, that's live streamed, that's played back consistently, and you can catch any rule breaks moment of. So challenge what you think is official, because I think it really kind of undercuts what the PSL is trying to do and what they are aiming to hopefully get out of this for the community at large. So the WCA has monopoly on results, and I think, honestly, for me, that's kind of cringe. I think monopolies are lame, because the WCA has been able to grow and bloat and not really get much stuff done, not really change much, and maybe you have a different opinion than me, and that's totally fine, but I think the WCA could do more for top-level solvers, and All Stars was a great foray into what I think could happen for the WCA, but it seems that they just aren't really willing to do more stuff like that, which is a little unfortunate. So if WCA isn't willing to do it, I don't see why another organization can't come in and fill the demand that at least me and a few other top-level solvers have, because, hopefully people like to watch it, and that's all I hope for. Hope that you watch the PSL and you like it. Another take, kind of on the same aspect of, is cubing even a sport? People were saying cubing is a hobby. That's valid, okay? You can say cubing is a hobby. If you enjoy cubing best as a hobby and you don't want to take it very seriously, that's never going away. The PSL is never threatening that. I don't know why you think it would. WCA exists. If you want your cubing as a hobby, stay within the WCA. That's totally fine. David Epstein commented in CF saying he enjoys cubing more as a hobby, even though he's a very competent top-level solver, but he doesn't like having to perform for a crowd for a championship or something. And if we're already doing that in the WCA, if we're already kind of putting people in streams and we have crowds, it's a hobby, sure, but it's a sport, right? Whether you like it or not, cubing is a sport. It has been transformed into a sport. Top-level competition is very sport-like. Everything that is officially a sport started off pretty much as a hobby. And unfortunately, you are in the part of cubing right now where we are kind of playing both sides. And I think we can play both, right? I'm not saying we have to be a sport or a hobby. Again, you can be both. I am a hobby basketball player. I play basketball in my free time, at the park, whatever. You don't see me on the court with LeBron and Luka trying to lock them up, because I can't. But does that stop me from enjoying basketball in a hobby sense? No. So just because PSL has come around and wants to provide something for the top-level solvers does not mean that you as a top-level solver need to participate. Even if you're a top-level solver, you don't need to participate. If you as a mid-tier cuber or whatever want to participate in the PSL, you can do that. If you think that the value proposition is good enough, or you want to just be a part of that experience, you can do it. If you're a top-level solver and you don't want to be a part of the PSL, don't sign up. If you want your cubing as a hobby, treat it as a hobby, stay within the WCA. But to say that cubing isn't a sport when it already has become a sport at top level, and there are people who take it seriously and people who make a living off of it, I think you are being blind to the way that the sport is going. And again, any of these thoughts, if you disagree with me, I would love to hear your thoughts, because I genuinely don't see a way that you can look at cubing and say, to some capacity, it has not already become a sport. So a take that I saw as well is that when cubing becomes a sport, and money enters it, it loses the spirit of the community. Cubing has been built on being inclusive and welcoming to all, and there has been ease of access to top level solvers, which I think is good. I think all these things are good. However, like I said previously, a lot of stuff starts that way and then it slowly transitions. If there is demand from the people inside of it and there is enough demand from the general populace, which we don't know yet. That's why people are trying out the PSL, to see if the general public wants to relate to it. If that's the case, then things are going to change. Unfortunately, there's going to be a change in culture, but I don't think cubing is ever going to lose the inclusivity aspect of it. Again, I think all that stuff starts with the WCA, and because the PSL exists does not change the fact that the WCA is a great grassroots community that gets people involved in cubing and is great for building lifelong relationships and friendships and building organizational skills and leadership skills and teaches you how to perform under pressure. There's a lot of things that I've learned from cubing in the WCA that have helped me in my real life. I don't think when money comes into a sport, it necessarily ruins it. Look at chess, look at tennis, look at darts, look at whatever. The community is still there, even when there's money. And spirit of cubing is a very vague way to put it, but I don't think the spirit of cubing is ever going to truly die. I think the Netflix doc does a great job of showing what the spirit of cubing is, and Why We Cube does a great job of showing the spirit of cubing. And I don't think any of that is ever going to go away, just because people at the top want to continue to stay in the community. If anything, I think people at the top wanting to make a living out of cubing shows that they have a love for the game. I want to stay in the cubing community as long as possible. I want to be a figure. I want to help it grow. I want to commentate top level events. I want to coach the next generation of cubers. I want to stay involved in this as long as I can, because I have been cubing since I was 10 years old, and it has become a huge pivotal part of my life. And if I can stay a part of it for as long as possible, that is great. I cannot do that if I have a full-time job. If cubing becomes my full-time job, I can invest all of my time, energy, and effort into making sure that it grows into something that I would love to see and something that I think is great for everybody at large. Getting more people into cubing, there's a lot of benefits, and there's a lot of stages of cubing that exist. Just because streaming top-level competitions and giving a platform for these top-level solvers to exist gives them an opportunity to make a career off it does not mean that the spirit of cubing is going to die. I assure you, nobody is going to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube and get really good at it because there's money involved, okay? Anyone who does it is doing it for the love of the game, and giving them an opportunity to make a career out of it is just allowing them to stay in it longer and hopefully grow the community. So if you were concerned that PSL is going to challenge the spirit of cubing, I urge you to rethink your train of thought there. Cubing can exist as a sport and as a hobby, just like the way basketball exists. And plenty of other things have done it. It's not really a problem. Do not feel threatened that the PSL is existing or trying to exist, because it seems like people really don't want it to, but that's generally my idea. Last thing, and I think the most valid critiques of the PSL, are the budget and pricing and financial aspect of it. I'm not super heavily involved in the PSL's financial stuff. I am more just a forward-facing ambassador for the brand. I can't speak too much about it. What I know about the PSL, people were saying that looking at the budget, doesn't seem like it's going to be profitable, doesn't seem like it makes sense, that an organization cannot exist solely based off of competitor fees and spectator tickets. My understanding, that is not the only way that PSL gets the money, and as well, PSL would like to not charge the people as much as it is. It is an unfortunate reality that things cost money. And again, like I said previously, in the FGC, these types of ticketing prices or reg fees would not be crazy. FGC is a lot larger, but even a regional, they're charging this much. I think it's a little silly to just hate on PSL solely based off of that, because the goal is to not be that expensive later down the road. Again, minimum viable product. Season 1 is a proof of concept. Once season 1 goes through, hopefully, if it's good enough, the numbers are good, whatever, you can bring it to a sponsor and say, hey, can you give me some money? Can you give me some money to help me out and subsidize some of this cost for the audience, for the competitors, help me put on more events, etc., etc. And Chai talked about this a bit in the Speaking Ben Zed interview. I would urge you to watch it. I haven't watched it all the way. Chai's a little roundabout in some of his answers, but he gets there. I think it makes sense that you, as a WCA member, have felt a little slighted from the prices of the PSL. Understandably so. They are about the cost of worlds, but the idea is that you get a more comprehensive experience. Do that what you will, whether you believe it or not, remains to be seen. Hopefully some people go to PSL San Diego and Berkeley, and they enjoy their experience there, and then word of mouth spreads, and we get people going to more PSL events, and then hopefully there's enough viewers for the PSL comp, and we can bring that to a sponsor and make it cheaper for the next time. I think one thing people forget is that the PSL is a startup. Most startups don't start profitable, okay? Season 1, probably not gonna be profitable. The idea is that it will be. Remains to be seen again. But yeah, hopefully if the product is good, then it'll be cheaper for people to come in next time. And then maybe you are fine getting knocked out in top 64 of the PSL because you get to have a good comprehensive experience with sponsor money and people can put on a good event for you. So I would say optimistic about the future of PSL in terms of that sense. Another critique is that the organizers are getting money. This is a very heated debate. I'm of the opinion that the WCA is allergic to money. I think most people can agree to that. I made a video a little bit back called Cubing is Changing. And in that video, I talked about how more money is going to be coming into cubing. And this is what I kind of touched on a little bit. But people don't really like that. Specifically the organizers in the community, delegates in the community. And to them, I said, why do you not want to make money? You spend so much of your free time as a delegate, or you should, if you're a good delegate, putting time into putting things on for your community. And I appreciate you doing it for the love of the game. At a certain point, though, it is not sustainable for you to do it for the love of the game. It's just not, and it's not going to be. And if it's never going to be sustainable for people to do it for the love of the game, eventually that's going to lead to less comps because people don't want to invest the time necessary for free for volunteer work to put on events for their community. And so even if there's some small financial incentive in the WCA, which I agree there should be, I think regional orgs should be allowed to pay the organizers / delegates a percentage of the competition fees. That is a huge controversial take apparently, but I don't see why not, because you are putting in so much effort. And the take is that, okay, well, when you incentivize it financially, then people don't do it for the love of the sport. Again, no one is coming into cubing to host competitions because they're gonna get the bag. It is only to make sure that the people who do large amounts of effort for their community and allow it to exist and keep the WCA growing are able to do it just a little bit longer. Because how else is the community gonna grow? And to that, I say the organizers of the PSL are doing what they should. If you want to make money because you're putting on events, especially events that potentially could get sponsored or have a lot of eyes on them, who's to say that you shouldn't get a little bit of payment to make sure that it's financially viable for you to continue to do so? Because if it's not financially viable for you to spend your time on PSL events, PSL doesn't exist. And in turn, cubing doesn't grow, or at least that's the goal. So to all of you allergic to money or concerned with money coming into cubing, I think it's silly. If you are an organizer, you are a delegate, and you do a lot of work for your RO, I believe you are entitled to a certain amount of that money. You are a reason that money is there. Last thing, this is a misconception. Minors pay more than adults. It's not really a misconception. It technically is true. Minors have to be accompanied with an adult for the PSL. Spectator fees are arguably expensive. So if you are a child, unfortunately, you have to pay more than just an adult would to attend the PSL because you need to have a parent accompanying you. That's unfortunate. I think it's just the rules of the venue, though. So is what it is. I think there are plenty of people who have money to throw around in the cubing space, especially in California where the event's being held. $75 is a lot different in other places in the world. California, $75, it's a lot easier to justify than maybe in Louisiana. So do with that what you will. Not to say it's cheap by any means, of course, not necessarily so. But to say minors are getting charged more than adults seems a little disingenuous. It is technically true, I guess. Yeah, they have changed the wording on the website because it was a little vague at the start. So again, this is a startup, right? Like there's going to be some growing pains, and not everything's going to be perfect. I guess that's about it. Those are like the main critiques I saw on the PSL. In closing, what I want you to take away from this video is that the PSL is not trying to destroy the WCA. If you want cubing to exist as a hobby, it will always exist as a hobby. Trying to tailor to top level solvers does nothing to take away from the cubing community we have already. It just only aims to enhance the experience for top level solvers while simultaneously making it a better viewer experience for non-cubers, aiming to grow the community, get more money involved, and then hopefully that cycle repeats, where the entire economy grows, people can coach, people can be YouTubers, people can be commentators, and it doesn't have to be volunteer work, and it doesn't have to take away from their day job. You can invest more time into cubing if you are able to make a little bit of money from it. It does not need to be crazy. No one is coming into the cubing community to make money, okay? There's no money in it right now. So why would I come into it when there's like marginal amounts of money coming, hopefully? I understand the critiques of the PSL. Hopefully I addressed most of what you thought in this video, but give the PSL a chance. I strongly urge you to give the PSL a chance. If you're somebody who was skeptical on the production or the format or whatever, just watch Berkeley. Timon, Maddie, and I are gonna go and try our best to make it a great viewer experience for everyone there and for everyone on the stream for free. It is literally free to watch the live stream. See for yourself if it really plays out as bad as you thought it would. Maybe it will. But from my perspective, I'm hopeful that it will be a great thing. And even if it plays out bad the first time, there's still 5 more events after. So don't just discount it off the first one. Or just don't discount it without looking at it at all. If you don't want to pay money, that's fine. Watch the stream and try to support it whatever you can, because for me, this was a huge reason why I decided to go full-time as a cubing personality, coach, content creator, and I really hope that it does well, because I think it'll be great for the community at large. It's not trying to threaten the WCA. It is trying to just get people into the community and set a slightly different culture. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts or whatever you have in the comments, or if I didn't hit any of the concerns that you had, please leave them below. I would love to discuss them with you. And yeah, I'm hopeful the PSL will turn out great, and it'll be a great step forward for the community, and we will look back at this now and say, glad that somebody took a risk. So, thanks.